This week, Logan Harris of SpotterRF joins us for our interview today. Some very interesting technology that's a little deviation from the typical enterprise security solution that I think our listeners are going to very much enjoy. Another special guest here with me in studio, no stranger to the Security Weekly Network, Mr. Michael Santarcangelo is visiting this week and will be sitting in on this episode. We're going to do enterprise security news where we're going to cover ForcePoint, Juniper, Riverbed, Threat Quotient, Lieberman, WatchGuard, Flexera, and more, all on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly.
The teleprompter now has artificial intelligence, Doug, and updates itself. It's awesome. This week, and talk about them as it relates to enterprise security. You're going to do great.
I think that people think that you and I talk like every day at night. You know, It's like, hey, what are you doing? It's kind of a bit of an exhausting week. And I think that we noticed that a little bit in the stories for this week as well.
LogRhythm's Netmon Freemium delivers real-time network visibility to quickly identify emerging threats in your IT environment. Netmon Freemium is a free commercial-grade network forensics and traffic analytics solution. You can use Netmon Freemium's powerful capabilities to search against all observed network traffic, identify abnormal traffic patterns and application usage, and quickly analyze full packet captures. Take the first step towards real-time network visibility. Visit logrhythm.com/freemium to learn more and download it today. Are you worried about PCI compliance? Does your development team understand or care about security? Are you ready to face a breach of your customer sensitive data? See the worst that can happen before it does. Black Hills Information Security can help you help management see the future. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to find out how a web application penetration test can mitigate the risk before you go live. Welcome, everyone, to episode 68 of Enterprise Security Weekly for November 8th, 2017. I'm, of course, your host, Paul Assatorian, joined in studio by the sand hobo himself, Mr. Michael Santarcangelo. Michael.
I almost had to wear a parka.
It's cold. It's cold.
I put on shoes. I have on pants instead of shorts. This is not...
It's so nice to have you in studio.
I'm excited.
In studio for the first time ever, really. That's awesome.
Ever. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's you watch and you think you know what it's going to look like, and then you get here and it's actually cooler.
Well, this set is brand new, and the only reason we're on this set is because we're working on building the other set. That's really there's a whole bunch of lumber that just came in today, which is awesome. I'm excited, and I'm super happy with this set. I mean, I think I actually said this set was done, which is, for me, usually
That's
never,
unusual.
Those words never are uttered by my mouth, but I'm super happy with it, and I hope our viewers enjoy it. If you've only been listening, make sure you check out the video. I think it looks spectacular, and we put a lot of work behind it. So
it's comfortable. I mean, it's comfortable sitting here. I dig it. And I tell you what, too, it's a real treat, because usually if I'm joining you from Skype, I can see you. Actually, what people don't know is if you're joining from Skype, all I can actually see is whatever they see.
Right.
So it's really awkward at first, because you've got to get used to seeing yourself and you're listening to other people, but if you're on screen, you're listening to yourself, and it's really kind of different. So it's neat to be here and see how it actually works. Like I want this set up now at my house.
It's a lot of fun.
I want to build a remote studio.
You can build a remote studio. It's I have help, so
you're gonna work it out.
I want to mention our sponsors, itpro.tv. You can go to itpro.tv/enterprise security. Use the discount code ES30. Try it free for 7 days and get 30% off your monthly membership for the lifetime of your subscription. Now, Michael, you and I were talking about itpro TV earlier today.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the chance to talk to them a lot, so I love their approach. And one of the things that we've talked about, especially when we look at it from a security perspective, is a lot of people look at it and they go, oh, well, why would I want to go learn on just a particular topic or certification, which is how they got started. But what I really dig about their approach now is they're bringing in experts to talk about current events, and they're looking at whether you're a blue teamer or a red teamer. And what you and I are talking about is that's a pretty big advantage, especially if it's something you're not really versed in. Now you can be, and I think it's an opportunity for a lot of people in our industry. Things move fast, and to get an opportunity to go listen to somebody else that's thought out, that's professionally produced, and then to act on it right away, and then say, oh, cool, I want to try something else. Oh, I want to try something else. We keep hearing that there's a skill shortage. We keep hearing that we can't find enough qualified people. Go hire smart people that are excited, set them loose, see where they go.
What I like is it's different from podcasting and the production that we have, in that you can be very focused and there's more careful. We're kind of running all our shows every week in a more entertaining kind of show format. They're more formalized training that's always up to date, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Then you can supplement that with live training or studying for a particular certification. So I think it fits really well in, especially if you're an information security or IT professional. Like I feel like it fits, right? You should have all those things in place, and it's a new category. I think it's a new category, as we've spoken with them about. I don't even want to call it training. It's more like materials immersion or something like that, right?
It's a development, right? When we look at the difference between training and development, training is highly skill specific, and you can get that there. But what they're also offering you is subscription-based development. So they're looking. I mean, this is one of the questions that I love talking to them about is, so how are you finding this stuff? Is it because people are asking for it? Are you out looking for it? Are people bringing it to you? And their answer is yes, yes, yes.
Yep.
Oh, cool. Well, there you go then. I mean, it's essentially crowdsourcing what you need to know if you want to be a professional today.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's great. I want to move into our special interview for today. I'm so excited to bring on Logan Harris. He's the CEO and founder of SpotterRF. Logan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Logan, tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to create SpotterRF.
That is kind of an interesting story. It's been a fairly long story. I started doing radar systems since year 2000. First of all, to do monitoring of traffic flows on freeways and highways. And so I got some background in how to do small, lightweight, lower cost radar systems than maybe what you would expect from radar. Most people, when they think radar, they think these big rotating dishes at the airport or something used by the military. And we've taken it to a whole different scale with this new class of radar we call compact surveillance radar. And you can kind of see a picture behind me next to my face, small enough that you can hold it in your hand, takes less power than a compact fluorescent light bulb, and you can put it up and use it pretty much anywhere, and covers very large areas.
So Logan, when we first started talking, when I, as a security professional, hear the term RF, I think, oh, well, you can detect like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth devices in my environment. And you're like, no. Think about sonar, if sound waves, or radar, radio waves. You're actually doing physical detection of things with RF, and it's not. And I think a lot of people might make the same mistake I did and think of it in the wrong way. It's not actually analyzing Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, because we talk a lot about that. Right. But this is physical detection of things using RF.
That is correct. I mean, it is a radar system. It transmits a radio signal that goes and bounces off a target, comes back, we analyze that information from the return, and then we say, okay, you've got something that's moving at 500 meters at 23 degrees, and it's approaching at 6 kilometers per hour, and cue your cameras onto target. So that is what the radar does, and it uses RF, the radio frequencies, in order to do that.
So Logan, what problems does this solve for organizations? I know when organizations come to you, and stealing Michael's question, right? Like, what problems do they have that you're like, yes, we solved this for you? Like, where are the gaps in some of their traditional physical surveillance systems?
Well, it's kind of interesting. What you will see in kind of most physical security type systems to date is you have fence line sensors or you have camera systems. And most of those camera systems are used for forensics. 80% of them, I saw a recent study that said that 80% of CCTV systems that are used for security are not monitored in real time. They have too many false alarms. They're affected too much by the environment. They're not for real-time prevention. And that's where radar comes in. If you think about how radar was used in the past, either by the military, they don't, this is life and death. You don't want to know after the fact that someone has crossed your perimeter as inside of your base, your camp, your facility. It's too late at that time. Bad things have happened. So they need to know way in advance, okay, we've got potential threats. approaching, let us then react accordingly and prevent harm from happening. And that's where radar really fits in, because with one of these little devices that we have, we're able to, like, for instance, one of our very popular units is the C40. It has 600-meter range with a 90-degree field of view. That's over 40 acres of coverage in a device that weighs 1.5 pounds. And that gives us time. That gives the security professionals time to react and prevent someone from entering their facility. You don't want them, on your fence line or on your door before you know about it. You want that couple of minutes, and that's what radar gives you. It gives you minutes of advance warning. And what can you do with a few minutes of knowing before something happens? You can do a lot.
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, so when you set this up, the limited amount that I know about RF engineering and looking at it, does the height matter? So, like, when you're using the C40, is that intended to be more of a permanent installation? And do you have more portable units? And then how does somebody actually deploy or use this in your experience? Like, what are you seeing people do?
So there are two different main. One is a mobile system. We have backpack kits that the military likes to use, or a rapid response team where they carry the radar system in their backpack with some batteries, and they pop it up pretty much in minutes anywhere, and other systems like with electrical utilities, these are fixed installations, long-term deployments, and they're hooked on poles on the side of buildings, even in trees, around some of our, high-end residential clients where they don't want to have anything visible. We have camouflage units that they've attached to trees or on, barns or buildings, and, pretty much anywhere you want it. So there are two main applications, fixed and mobile.
So, Logan, my question was, when your system detects something that's far away, as it approaches, what kind of integrations do you have to be able to take action other than like sending people to the perimeter? I believe you mentioned before that you can tie into some of the surveillance systems and lighting systems to be able to better identify potential threats.
Yes. Would it be helpful if I shared with you some videos showing
Absolutely.
some of that?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay. So let me grab here and show you one. I'm going to share my screen with you here and show you some examples. It's, picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So let me start this up. Okay, so here's one. This is, for instance, this is for a drone target. So one of the things it's a new threat are drones. So if you're a data center, you don't want drones flying overhead sniffing your network. This right here is what you get. The radar system is positioned right here. This is the web-based UI that has a graphics background, the satellite image. It gives you a GPS coordinate of where the track is. Now we see here's the drone approaching. We're then queuing. You can see this over here is the camera that's being queued on target for additional confirmation or identification. And then you have these two antennas, which in this case is a jammer system. Now, this is not something that we can offer to commercial entities, at least not the jamming portion,
right.
but for
FCC
detection and ID. Yeah, that's one of the constraints that security professionals in most cases have to deal with, is that, jamming Wi-Fi or cell or even GPS is frowned on as of yet, even though that'll be changing, I think, in the future. So that's more of a military or federal government agency that would be able to purchase the jamming system. But we do sell these to electrical utilities as well as stadiums, data centers who need to detect objects not only on the ground but also in the air.
So when you're detecting something, are you able, using the RF, can you identify signatures so you can determine whether it's a drone or a bird or, a person walking versus a small vehicle? Like, how fine-grained can you get?
Yeah, that's what we can do is we look at a couple different characteristics. With the radar, there's a lot of information. We have the radar cross-section, which is approximate, their side, their direction. we have their behavior. It's not just like a fence line sensor or a motion sensor. You get one detection. You get, okay, there's something on my fence. We get a lot of information. We have a lot of information about the characteristics of that target. And then we can set up what we call behavioral filters, saying, okay, if it's approaching in this direction, at this velocity, sound alarm or cue cameras on target or do something about it. So that's one way. We also have applied additional levels of intelligence, in this case, artificial intelligence, that can be trained at a site to say, okay, if things do this way and have this type of nature, taking all these inputs from the radar systems and then teaching them to recognize, okay, in this case, it's a person, or in this case, it's a deer, or in this case, it's a vehicle or a drone. And that allows us to do quite well at classifying the type of target. Now, we're not going to be able to say, what type of drone it is per se, or is that a man or a female? We're not going to be able to do that. But we can say, okay, it's an animal, it's a person, it's an airborne object, or it's a bird versus a drone. So that's the type of level of classification that we can get.
When you get down to the person level, can you so I'm a utility, you can tell me, okay, there's a person approaching your perimeter. Is it fine-tuned enough then too that you could say there are 3 people walking? I mean,
not generally. If they're grouped together, there is what we call range and velocity gates. Basically, it says if there's any targets that are closely grouped together, then just group them together as one track.
Okay.
And it's not going to give you that fine of resolution. To give you an idea, our range resolution, in a way, kind of like our pixel resolution in range, is 3 meters. So it doesn't degrade. That's the nice thing about radar is the range resolution does not degrade in distance. Whether you're 1,000 meters away or 2 meters away, we know within 3 meters where you're located. And so if they're grouped tightly together within those resolution boxes, then we're not going to be able to really tell you if it's 1 or 2 or 3 if it's all grouped together in a very tight. Now, if they're spread out, then yes, we can pull out and say there's different tracks and on multiple people. So that is kind of the nature of radar. Is there is some trade-offs in terms of we don't have as fine as resolution as an HD camera, but then we don't have the problems with wind. Well, things like rain and fog and snow, we see right through those.
That's cool. Logan, if you can speak about any anti-evasion techniques that either you've seen in the wild or things that your system does to maybe detect if someone is trying to evade this type of system.
Well, there's not much you can do really with radar to evade it. I mean, it's not like thermal cameras where you can try to, put on thermal reflecting or like a heavy coat. Say with a thermal camera, it's pretty easy. You put on some thermal or heat masking type of clothing and you disappear. With radar, it's just movement. Okay, so the only thing you can do to evade radar is not move.
Right.
Not move. And if you're not moving, well, you're not approaching and you're not a threat.
And now someone could potentially try and jam your system, but obviously that's an event that is detected. Is that correct?
That is correct. So yes, they could jam it. It would be difficult to do. We operate in a 10 gigahertz license band. So it's not like you're going to find anything off the shelf that would jam our system. And you have to put a considerable amount of power very close because we use kind of a spread spectrum type of frequency waveform. So if you jam one particular frequency, that's not really going to affect us too much. And so it is quite difficult to jam. And if it does, and it is possible with some very expensive, sophisticated equipment, if you do, then yes, we'll detect that and alert the operator saying you've got a jamming event. And so they go onto high alert.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a clue.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone was able to jam this. Go now. Act on it.
Now, because they've raised the bar so high, your adversary is a nation state or a very well-funded, sophisticated group that you're...
I have kind of an interesting question, Logan, and it's just one of the things that I marvel at is how fast technology has a tendency to change. And to be fair, until we met you, I didn't actually realize that you could carry radar in a backpack in that type of a unit. So how, as somebody who's done this and you've looked at it a lot of different ways, how do you find that technology is changing? I mean, you just talked to us about integration with drone and drone spotting and doing stuff. So there's some really nifty stuff on the integration and automation and artificial intelligence side. But are you finding then that that the technology is letting you go farther, go faster, be cheaper, get more fine-tuned? Like, what are you seeing are some of the changes, and what are some of the things that are exciting you about it?
Yes, I mean the speed of innovation is constantly increasing. I mean, what 20 years ago, doing something like we've done could not have been done. The technology wasn't there 20 years ago to do what we've done. But with the advances in wireless telecommunication, driven by cell phone technology as well as Wi-Fi and other things, that has pushed the forefront of these components, the bandwidths, the frequencies that can be operated, the costs are all being reduced greatly, and we can see that continuing to happen. And we can see that yes, things are going to get more flexible, more cost-effective, and we're seeing that in a very close future is that people are going to be looking at radar systems in a perimeter security as just one of the things that you should have. That right now, it's still fairly a new thing to many people that are in the perimeter security business. They're thinking, well, especially in the commercial side, not so much on the military side. Now it's quite standard, but in the commercial side, that's still kind of like, wow, what is this radar thing? And that's quickly becoming commonplace in a lot of these commercial institutions, and that's going to continue to grow even into residential. So if you have a yard, instead of putting a PIR like a thermal-based or heat-based PIR motion detector that goes off every time the wind blows, putting a little radar system out there that covers your whole backyards and then cues a camera and a light and a spotlight onto a potential threat is going to be commonplace.
Well, and that's kind of interesting because when we started talking about this, Paul and Logan, as I've been listening to you, I've started to realize that when we talk about do I have enough people or do I know where to focus, and I've been looking at some of the AI that they've been incorporating in cameras and trying to identify things and filter out threat from not. What I'm hearing from you is you can layer radar on that, and depending on what you find, you can activate different systems or alert people, which theoretically makes, I think you actually said it well before, because what we've seen a lot of times is cameras are typically used after the fact. That's okay, well, at least I have a record that something happened. I have a picture of who it was, or at least we know. Okay, and that's better than not knowing. But what you're offering is we can actually start to move a bit more proactive, at least in the situations or settings where that makes sense. But it also then lets me use the resources I have perhaps more efficiently. So who's coming to you? Are you finding in the enterprise side of things, on the commercial side, are they security officers? Are you finding people who were prior military that saw the benefits and now they want it? Because you said utilities are early adopters of this. Are you like in the enterprise side? Who are you surprised is seeing value in this faster?
Well, there's a couple of cases that has been surprising to us. One is data centers. Data centers have found that this is, they're highly sophisticated. They need to see, around their perimeters, both on the ground and in the air. And the air threat is a real threat. I mean, you don't want someone to land a sniffing SIGINT like intelligence, signal intelligence type, package on top of your building, unbeknownst to you. You want to know about it. Other commercial areas, for instance, oil and gas. We did a project in the North Slope of Alaska, right on the edge of the Arctic Sea, where they had polar bears coming on to their platform. It's a big cement pad right there on the edge of the ocean, and polar bears, of course, are getting on and off the ice, and the interaction of bears and people are not a good thing.
It's frowned upon.
And yes, they don't want that to happen. And with the type of weather conditions, optical cameras and thermal cameras just didn't work. And so they deployed our radar systems to detect polar bears and alert the people there to get into a safe location when there's polar bear approaching. So we didn't anticipate that happening. Another thing that's happened is fish farms across the world. You've got in these large fish farms that are in the ocean, or they have many millions of dollars worth of salmon or other fish in these very large, containers. In essence, they're open to the water to pass through, but they're netted off. And if someone comes and poaches that fish, they could lose several $1 million in one event. And so we've done a lot of those, which we didn't anticipate as well. Now, more commonly is facilities like electrical utilities, large distribution centers, and they're dealing with potential threat of terrorism, which is electrical utilities, but also a lot of theft. And that's where we come in and prevent the theft from happening, and be able to pick up the perpetrators, far prior. Gives them just literally minutes before something happens.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting you say the distribution center, not technology-wise, but in the cigar industry, there have been instances where shipments have been stolen.
Missing.
Yeah, it's missing, right? And it's potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars or more of product that can go missing. So, and that happens in many different such circumstances. Distribution centers where they're moving any types of goods. Theft happens, and when you're talking such a large space, how do you do that with cameras? You have to have a lot of cameras to do that, and then they're prone to false alarms, or if it's raining, foggy, or if there's
snow.
When I was setting up cameras at my home, and if I have a flag in the front, it changes with all the holidays and seasons. But if that's waving, the camera's just constantly going off. Now, I assume, Logan, your system can identify it's moving, but it's not closing distance, right, between myself and the facility, but it's moving. I'm assuming you can tell the difference of that and overcome that problem easily.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that we're really good at. In fact, if I've got time for another video,
Sure.
Let me see. I want to show you a case in point that this is extremely difficult for a camera system to do. Let me see. Pause that. This is out in the desert of Arizona, and what we're trying to do is show. Okay, this is what happens when you have someone approaching and got a lot of wind. And how would you do this with the camera system? So you can see the camera is right over here, pointing off to the left. You can see that the wind is blowing, a lot of wind right here, probably 20 knots or so, and no tracks, no false alarms. As soon as a person starts moving, you can see the track right there. Detect and track, cue cameras on target, alarm, and let the operator know that, hey, there's somebody coming in. That's the power of radar. Trying to do this type of thing, covering this large of an area with a camera system, with all the false alarms that would be created, is extremely, extremely difficult.
That's really cool.
It's a good point too, because when you mentioned it that time, it clicked. So I'm sure you said it before, and I know smarter people probably figured it out. But if the radar tells the camera where to look,
yes,
that's
the integration is what's really
pretty tight. Yeah, but not just the signal to turn it on, but turn it on and look here, because all the data that you can pass to it. Oh, that's tight. I like that a lot. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And I think for the enterprises too, data centers, I think it's an up and coming, because of the drone threat and other threats. Certainly, this is something that you can draw a lot of parallels to how we detect attackers against our computer systems, right? Is that we're enhancing other components of our defenses in making that better, right? We're making our camera system better by providing it with better information.
And that's a huge. I mean, Logan, you're new to me, but that's one of the things that I always look at is that is do you provide value? Awesome. Oh, do you enhance the stuff I have and make it better? Oh, well then that's a multiplier, and that's really exciting. But what I'm liking about this too is it's moving a lot of what we've done at Perimeter physical, and you're giving me the tools and the ability to be more active or more proactive with it, and I like that. So I'm getting a couple of different benefits out of it at the same time, and I think that's actually pretty compelling. I'm excited about it. We don't need to go into the costs, but are people generally surprised? Is this less expensive than they tend to think it to be? Because, I mean, to your point, typically if somebody says radar, I think about the local airport and a big spinning tower. We don't need to get into the pricing specifically, but where do you find this tends to fit in people's budgets?
Usually it's with people that have fairly large areas they have to deal with. And when you have a large area, then when you look at the alternatives, putting out, 20 cameras and then the fixed poles, putting poles at 20 sites, pulling cable to 20 sites. And if you can replace that with one radar system, it's very cost effective. And that's where we really have come into play. Say, for instance, the electrical utilities, they were looking at saying, okay, let's put out 6 different poles with thermal cameras running video analytics, and I've got a trench out to all those sites or all those different poles on our perimeter and bring that back. We replaced that with 2 or 3 radar systems mounted on the existing infrastructure in the center of the substation.
There you go.
We cut their costs by 3/4.
Wow.
You also speed the deployment then too. If I don't have to drill holes or trench to it, I can go with existing, and then that's already fortified, so I've got better protection on it right out of the jump.
Yeah, and that's
pretty cool.
That's a major cost saving. It went from deployment of a month and a half to a week.
Now, I'm kind of curious because when we first looked at this, I instantly went to, oh, this has got to be cool for drones. Do you find then that because you guys started the company 2009, so you're not new at this. It feels like you're pretty much ahead of the curve. Are drones driving a lot of interest now, or that's just people like Paul and I saying, no, drones are cool. This is good for drones. But people are using it for a lot of different purposes too.
Yeah, I mean, drones is a new threat, and radar is particularly well suited at finding an small airborne target out in the very large, space of air, of saying, okay, is there something of interest around me? That's the kind of the original motivating factor for the development of radar back, prior to World War II, was to find, airplanes.
Right.
And of course, ships that are in very vast spaces where you need to find something small out there in this very big space. And in a sense, we're solving the same problem, just at a much smaller scale. Instead of looking, 100 kilometers, we're looking 1 kilometer, in that type of range. And that's where it makes more sense to commercial entities, is saying, well, we don't really care about what's 1,000, 1,000 meters, close to a mile away from me is maybe not something I care about, but 300 meters, 400 meters away, I do care about that. If I'm a large utility company and I have a critical substation and there's not supposed to be anybody around me, I want to know about it.
Did you ever read the book Damon by Daniel Suarez?
No.
So in it, the SWAT team essentially is approaching the house, and there's an audible frequency that's emitted that basically makes everyone drop in excruciating pain. And that was actually one of the other integrations that you had mentioned, Logan. And I really thought it was just in science fiction. I thought maybe larger military installations might have that technology, but it's a little more widespread than I think I originally thought.
That is correct. Those devices are called LRAD. They're basically an acoustic beam, very high level of audible energy directed, focused on a particular point. Well, now that you know where something is fairly accurately, then yes, you can queue. And we do have customers, you can queue that LRAD, turn it on all automatically from a remote location. So you don't have to have your personnel out there, but you can now have an active response. And some of these sites are, highly critical to, to our civilization. If you think about our electrical grid, everything runs off of electricity, whether it's water or gas. All of that is moved by electricity and our communications, of course. And so, you lose your electricity, you lose everything. And we've seen that happen like in Puerto Rico, is where they, without electricity, everything grinds to a halt. And, that's the type of thing that we can prevent by having the information that you need at the right time prior to an event happening. Now you can do these active response technologies like an LRAD, or even a very bright beam of light, focused on the person. That will discourage most everyone. If you got this big spotlight that comes and follows you around and then starts, warning you, okay, you're on, you're trespassing and the authorities have been alerted, most people are going to take off. And if they don't take off, that you can escalate that to the proper authorities.
It's also the high-tech get off my lawn.
Yeah,
And
big time.
And so now I want this.
Yeah. I don't think as a consumer, Michael, you can purchase the LRAD system. I'm assuming, Logan, that's reserved for military, government, and industrial systems that have special permits to use that stuff.
Yeah, not particularly that one, but in a smaller sense, I think in the near future that it'll be something on a smaller scale that will be available to the residential homeowner.
Echo, activate the LRAD.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
That's
there
perfect.
You go. There you go.
I love this.
Well, Logan, thank you so much for coming on Enterprise Security Weekly. It was a fascinating discussion.
I learned a lot.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I learned a lot too. So, Logan, best of luck, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And with that, we're going to take a short break, come back, and talk about the enterprise security news for this week. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.